She put down your boy. D-Wiz? Those are cold.
Yeah, I know.
She tell you she had me through it?
After the casting crew were asked what will the audience need after watching this season, Antonio Ortiz said therapy. Malcolm Mays, who plays Lou, said you're gonna need a tissue box. There's just a lot of conflict, issues, and family drama, and how a jaw-dropping twist comes basically every other episode of this season. Whatever you see at first, that's not what it's gonna be a few episodes later. So those were some words from Antonio Ortiz and Malcolm Mays on what we can expect, and when it comes to Lou, I do think there are gonna be a few twists and turns with his character pretty much doing a role reversal with Marvin's. It seems like in the early stages of season 3, he's really battling with his inner demons, alcohol addiction, the actions of his past, this remorse over what happened with D-Wiz, Scrappy, Ziza, and also how he betrayed Juke. He also lost the one thing that gave him a sense of belonging outside the street game and a connection to his father, music. So Lou isn't exactly in the best of places, and so he's turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism, something that we've seen across the Power universe with other characters. Whether Lou can turn his life around, I think it's going to be very difficult, and I will be breaking it down from my perspective as to why he could be in danger, how music could be a saving grace, but how Malcolm Mays has teased more heartbreaking moments, especially with Juke. So I'm going to be referencing a lot of interview quotes to paint the picture of some plots that we're yet to see in Raising Kanan Season 3. Now, Lou was introduced as the youngest of the Thomas siblings. He was said to be the man to get shit done and get shit done right by the older Kanan. Despite him being softly spoken at the beginning and more the calm one, he was tough, fierce, and extremely loyal. He was often the voice of reason, Rock's trusted right hand and go-to. She often looked at him for approval when it came to street matters, and also tasked him to carry out some deadly acts, most notably D-Wiz, which was the catalyst for his character to head down this downward spiral. And we are going to dissect the impact that D-Wiz had on Lou throughout this video. We also learn how Lou had a real passion for music, which stemmed from his father taking him to the studio when he was a kid, and so he knew his way around a mixing board. He used a loan that he gave to Crown to muscle his way into a partnership through a debt-to-equity swap, and that was his way out the street game. We saw him focusing his time more on growing the label, but how this exit from the street game created a conflict with his life in the streets. This caused a huge problem for him and Rock throughout both seasons 1 and 2, because Lou started to imagine a life outside the street game, a life which you can't escape, and as much as Rock is evil, she was right with what she told Lou towards the end of season 1. Bulletproof Records was anything but clean, because it was bought through blood money. She also made him aware that everything he owns is hers, and how she basically owns him. Now, Lou wanted out ever since he pulled the trigger on D-Wiz, but the final straw was when he learned about what Rock had Kanan do, shooting a cop. Until this very day, he still doesn't know that Howard is Kanan's father, so that is a side plot to bear in mind. You can't be a half gangster, I really agree with Rock. You gotta pick one or you gotta do both full-fledged. It's because when you start your own path, I think she's just trying to pretend like she's not emotional, but she took it personally. So those were some words from Malcolm Mays prior to season 2, where he had one foot in the street game and one foot in the music industry, which is something we learned you can't do. Whether your ghost trying to become a legit businessman, Tariq who's trying to live 2 lives, or Tommy who's trying to be a gangster and love at the same time. For Lou, it was complicated by Crown, Cartier, him giving Juke song to Ziza, and eventually, Rock taking Crown's share in the label. For Lou, it was his dream to build this music label up, maybe go global and maybe even get out of Queens, away from a life that he said it himself, only ends in death or jail. He wanted to be left alone to do his thing with music, but Rock never failed to remind him that it was the streets that was funding his music career as well as paying for the studio. Now, where season 1 was just establishing the characters and the new world that we were entering in Raising Kanan in the 90s with the Thomases, season 2 was watching not just Lou, but all of them go through the process of what they do. There was growth for some like Marvin, but for others like Lou, he was just in a vicious cycle and a nightmare that he couldn't get out of. For Lou, it came back to D-Wiz. The remorse and empathy in his eyes after he killed D-Wiz, that was like one of my favorite moments for that character, simply because it did show a level of humanity in the midst of what could have just been a normal day at the office. So with that being said, that really was the crux of the issues for Lou, him having to put D-Wiz down, which he really struggled with in 102. You could see it throughout the episode that he didn't want to do what Rock wanted him to do, but he had no choice. It was him or Kanan. So coming over to season 3, you could tell everything that Lou had just been through, from having to put down D-Wiz, escaping near death multiple times, to losing loved ones. He really is just sick and tired of this life that he's been living. He wasn't even at Rock's new house at this family sit-down. He was at his second home, or what used to be anyway, but something that has always been tainted with blood. What aggravated him even more is the fact Rock now wants out the street game after she faced a near-death experience herself. So Lou was fuming, and rightly so. When he said he wanted out the game, she said she owns him. So now he's saying fuck Rock, but not only because of what she said to him or had him do. There are a few other factors at play, like Scrappy's death. He didn't need to go either, because he wasn't the snitch. Now let's just briefly look at this from Rock's point of view. I do think she was right when she said that was the cost of the game, and you do have to live with these choices and move forward, because if you don't, you ain't gonna survive. Sometimes you just have to own the mistake and move forward. It's the only thing you can do. In life, we all make mistakes. Of course, it's not a death of a loved one on our hands like Rock or Lou, but when we make a mistake, we can't let it cloud our judgment or consume us, otherwise we can't move forward. So I do believe Rock was right with what she said, but Lou's done. He's distanced himself from Rock at the beginning of season 3, and he also opened up to Kanan about what really happened with D-Wiz. You could really tell how this had been slowly chewing him up for a very long time. He had to take away a son, a brother, and his nephew's best friend, and it'd been weighing heavy on his shoulders as he finally came clean to Kanan that Rock had him carry out the deed. Now, just before we get to his alcohol addiction and him spiraling out of control, I do feel the mention of D-Wiz and this conversation happening at this moment in time is perfectly placed by the writers. Lou killed D-Wiz all the way back in 102, and Kanan is just finding out about it now in 301. So not only has his death been weighing heavy on Lou's shoulders for the best part of 2 seasons, but he keeps D-Wiz's memory alive for us as the audience, and let's not forget, he does have a brother who not long ago was released from prison, and someone who was said to be wild by Rock. Let's also not forget this look when D-Wiz mentioned his brother between Lou and Rock. They know who he is. So I wouldn't be surprised if he came back to town looking for revenge, and who knows, maybe he's the one who's put the gun to Lou's head, which is a scene from the season trailer. Now in this next chapter, we're going to take out Lou's relationship with Marvin and Jukebox, but just to add some more context, this is what Malcolm Mays had to say on his relationship with both. I feel like his trust has been fractured. That's why he is the way he is this season, because they did him wrong, and now he's been infected. Like being a distrusting person becomes infectious, and he ends up being not trustworthy person to my favorite niece. It's pretty sad. Now on Marvin, our relationship is inverted. Everything that people thought Marvin's character was, Lulu then becomes, especially in this season. We've all heard about Marvin's battle with addiction, and I think in this season we get to see Lou empathize with that a little bit more on a personal level. But yeah, they've completely role reversed. He's the one who's now letting down Juke. So we all know where Lou is at this moment in time, in terms of him turning to alcohol and trying to fight this addiction, which is very similar to what Marvin went through in the past, which is why he's now understanding what Marvin went through. But this is why their roles are reversed. Lou was the more strategic and calm one, whereas Marvin was the more reckless brother in seasons 1 and 2, but now that's shifted. Marvin is Rock's go-to and trusted right hand, with Lou becoming more and more reckless by the day. Now it's also very interesting that he also says he lets down Juke, because that also mirrors Marvin's past. Before we used to see Marvin letting down Juke, but it does seem like Lou giving Juke's song to Ziza won't be the last of the troubles between Juke and Lou. We all saw them together at the end of season 2 working on Juke's new song for our audition, but based on Malcolm May's quotes, I do think he may let down Juke once again, but maybe he may come back round to his alcohol addiction. Maybe Lou's completely wasted and misses Juke's audition, or he's not there by her side when she needs her uncle, which I think is a real possibility based on those quotes and the general trajectory of his character. Now there are 2 ways we can look at this. There's Juke's perspective and there's also Lou's. So we're only going to focus on the questions for Lou, because I will do an updated analysis for Juke's story arc at some point this season. But if Lou lets Juke down again, where does that leave him in regards to his story? I said that music could be the one thing that could save Lou, but if he lets down Juke, then he's also letting down Marvin. He's also saying fuck Rock, and if he does continue to spiral out of control with his alcohol addiction and doesn't have music to fall back on, where does that leave his character? This is why I fear for Lou, and we may just be watching his downfall.